Celtics Beat, brought to you by PrizePicks.
Today is Saturday, July 12th, and this is Celtics Beat on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio-video coverage of the Boston Celtics. I'm Adam Kaufman. Episode 632 features Barstool Sports' Dan Greenberg.
And I'm Evan Valenti, and today's show is powered by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the official daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media. Download the app today. Use the promo code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5.
Hey, everybody, it's Celtics Beat. Thanks for being here with us. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti. Our special guest today, we have Dan Greenberg from Barstool Sports. You can get him on Twitter at StoolGreeny. We have much to get into, including a very first and dominant performance out of the Summer League Seas there in Vegas, a game in which our own Greeny here was in attendance for that win 92-78 against the Memphis Grizzlies. Not that the score or the margin of victory or anything like that matters at all. It's all about individual performances, how the rookies look, some of the add-ons and their potential to make this team. We'll explore all of it as we go on throughout this show, among other financial things related to this team. Of course, I wasn't here with you last week. Ev held down the fort. A lot of great prospect talk as it relates to this Celtics squad. Fellas, how we doing?
Fantastic. I mean, coming off a win. First time they played in
basketball's back.
I mean, it was 50. I counted because I'm drained. 56 days since we had seen this team play. So I feel like that's the longest gaps in 4 years since the pandemic. When you think about how the NBA schedule, how quick that was. So It was great to see them at least, back on the floor.
My life is way different now that Hugo Gonzalez has walked into it, and I'm a better man for it. That's all I'm going to say.
So we know. Let's start with that for just a second. We know it's not Hugo, by the way. It is either. Is it Hugo or Ugo?
I think it's Hugo.
Hugo.
Yeah, I think it's Hugo.
Hugo Gonzalez.
Like if it were YU instead of just So it's like you say the. I don't know if that's phonetics or whatever, but like the U is like the Hugo.
Okay. All right.
But I'll confirm. My brother-in-law is from Leon, Spain. I'll confirm for you if you.
Let's confirm, or maybe let's just get Gonzalez on the horn. We'll
That's true. He could also tell you.
Yeah. How do we say your name, dude?
Did anybody before we keep going? Anybody see him in his little silent interview with Stephanie Reddy last night?
So I rewatched it. So locked in. He might be more locked in than Joe Mazzulla. I'm not even kidding. He might have locked in levels that Joe Mazzulla does not know exist.
I don't know. I think back to the story was told on one of the CLNS pods here recently about the Shireman and Mazzulla stare down going into the locker room where they both just stood there for like 45 minutes before ultimately Joe had to go in for a meeting and he had to, give up his position. Basically, we need a lot of that. We need a lot of mentally strong, tough, borderline psychotic people associated with this team.
Yeah, and honestly, being there in person, any time if he missed a layup or missed a read or made a mistake, he would rage at himself to a degree that you're thinking buddy, it's not Game 7 of the NBA Finals. You're okay. This is your first day. So that alone just is so exciting that he might be the perfect psycho for Mazzulla to mold.
So before we get into all things summer season, I do want to, us to react, especially you, Greeny, being at the game, being our guest. I want to react to the performances of some of the guys that were drafted by the Seas, some of the guys like Charles Bassey trying to make this roster. And we know, obviously, there is a thin stature in the front court for Boston. But before we get into any of that, I want to talk about the big club, if you will, and some of the changes that have been made over the last couple of weeks. And, I don't want to rehash a lot of what's already been done on this show with Drew Holiday being traded away for Anthony Simons, and is he going to remain on the roster? And, George Niang comes in as Kristaps Porzingis was sent away. Brad Stevens met with the media not long ago, talked about how obviously Luke Cornett is gone now, a San Antonio Spur. It is unlikely, as he put it, that Al Horford is going to be back. Someone reached out to me independently, and this was before Brad even spoke, and said, there's no chance, deader than dead. There is no world in which Al Horford returns to the Celtics. So I think Brad was caging it in a kind way and saying unlikely. It sounds like, in this person's opinion, that it's, either retirement or Golden State. And honestly, between the two, I'd prefer retirement, but we can talk about that if we want to as well. And in addition to that Brad, and this is maybe one of the more noteworthy things, that he thinks that there's a real chance that generally speaking, the roster that exists right now is the one that's going to open up the season, which would floor me, guys. It would floor me. I would be genuinely surprised if we get this roster. And that doesn't mean I'm waiting for, Brown or White to be traded or Pritchard to be traded or even necessarily Hauser to be traded. I just don't think that they really are going to open the season with a front court that's like Kata starting. Or is Bassey going to impress that much? Or is Amari Williams as a second rounder, by the way, going to impress that much? Like, is that what this is going to look like opening day? Because if it does, and I'm wrong about that, then we're looking at a team that, truly, like, I know they don't want to use the term rebuild and all of that, but, we can have real conversations about what are their intentions. And that's all part of the stuff that I want to delve into. But first thing, Ev, week or two ago, whatever it was, 2 weeks, I guess, we did the show with Keith Smith and we talked all about the second apron penalties. And then we got aggregated a little bit. We got talked about on local
dork-ass white boys, baby.
That's what it was. Thank you. Dork-ass white boys putting too much credence into the second apron penalties and, how crippling the new CBA is. Yeah, we got a little mocked, and that's okay. That's fine. Actually, it's somebody reached out to me. Like, I got a text from a buddy who heard it live. I didn't even know it was happening. He goes, man, Felger's really going in on you right now. So I was curious. So I, listened back to it because it got tweeted out. And I texted him back. I was like, that's about the nicest Felger's ever sounded talking about me. So I'm not worried about it at all. Mm-hmm. But it did get me thinking about this. And this is where I will stop rambling. And I want your opinion. So people want to live on these two sides of the fences, right? It's the second apron. We got to get under it. The all the ramifications of the luxury taxes and the penalties and yada, as we've been talking about plenty. Or ownership is cheap. And they just don't want to spend and blah, 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 that side. I think there's kind of a middle ground that people aren't necessarily talking about, Greeny, which is what would be happening if Jason Tatum never got hurt. Like, we're giving the Celtics, I'm giving the Celtics this out, basically, that Tatum got hurt. You're not contending this year without him. It makes sense to kind of attempt to reset things and get yourself under certain financial benchmarks or points, and so what they're doing is logical. But I think if Tatum were healthy and were available this coming season, I still don't see them just running it back, from a team that won 2 years ago that, was very much in the mix last year, if not for some injuries. I don't see them just running it back. I think that it's still, even if you justified holding on to Porzingis as an expiring contract, and I'm not sure, given the lack of dependability, that would have happened in the first place. Holiday, and Ev knows this, I've been saying this for months. Holiday is a contract I would have been begging to get off of because I just don't think it was aging well. So I think you needed to move off of that, even again, if you had Tatum. So I don't think it's ownership being cheap, and I don't think it's entirely the second apron penalties. I think it's them looking at the roster and just simply knowing we got to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is everybody wants a finished product on July 12th so they can live in one of those extremes like you mentioned, right? Like, I'm with you. I think had he not gotten hurt, but they still didn't win the title, they were always getting under the second apron one way or another this year. Now, what may have been different is the pieces that they brought back by getting under the apron. Could that have been different if Tatum was still around, right? Like, if Tatum was here, do you maybe look to flip Drew for a different position than Anthony Simons? Now you need shot creation, you need shooting. If Porzingis, do you bring back a different player than George Niang? But the process of getting off money to get under the second apron was always happening regardless. No team is spending 3 straight years in the second apron. None. That's not a money thing. That's the basketball side. Where people then want to conflict it is they want to say, oh, well, now the Celtics are so cheap, they're getting under the luxury tax for 2 years because Billy Chisholm doesn't have the money, blah, blah, blah. First of all, they're still over the tax. So it's like that hasn't even happened yet. And second, like you said, if Tatum was healthy, they're paying the luxury tax. So it's like this idea that they're cheap and don't have money doesn't really make sense if you also feel that they would be a tax team if Tatum exists. So the way I look at it is there's financial benefits to at least giving, like, if you tell me they can flip Simon's money into 2 smaller contracts that fill out your roster with positions of need and that gets you a lower enough salary to not be a tax team, great. If you were to tell me they're going to unload his $27 million for nothing and just eat that, as a salary dump, I'd say that's probably pretty stupid, given the asset and your roster needs. But I do think Brad was telling the truth where, they may enter the season with this roster, but they won't be past the trade deadline with this roster, because if you need to be under the second apron, it's just by the end of next season. So you're at least going to be over it until February. Same thing with the luxury tax. So I just think people want all the decisions done now, but their roster manipulation is something that's going to most likely bleed into February.
I would say probably January, given Stevens' history. Like that, I'm on Greeny's side with this. This is a very patient guy who's like, let's see what we got for a couple months and see what we really need and what we can, where we can plug and play and all that stuff. Like the idea is going to be, let's let Simons go nuts here. Let's let him have, his opportunity to shine on this team. As we all can kind of guess, offensively, he's going to bring a lot to this team. Defensively, he's not. I think we all know that. But there is an opportunity for him to shine like a Peyton Pritchard, to come in, just absolutely be a microwave scorer off the bench, maybe initiate their offense, et cetera, keep them afloat, and stimulate pace. One of the things that Pritchard does as soon as he comes off the bench is, they're going to run faster, they're going to move faster. So in this case, I kind of love the way that Brad does this. It's like, okay, not only do we know what we'll need after watching this team for a while, but we'll also have a better idea of what Simons is and what he can net us as an asset. There should be no rush to do this unless the offer is too good, which I don't think anybody's doing that at the current moment.
Do you think Simons is going to be a different player here than he was in Portland?
I think he could grow into one.
Yeah, I think he'd be more efficient.
Surely.
Sure.
Okay, more efficient, but he's still going to be I just mean he profiles the same way, right? And that's not a complaint. I'm excited to watch him in a uniform, Celtics uniform. They don't trade him away, which according to Brian Windhorst, they're still trying to do. But turnstile defensively and a volume 3-point shooter, which again, Missoula ball and killer whale offense and all of that stuff. I'm excited to watch him. I think he's going to be good. I don't know how much more value he can necessarily create for himself unless, I don't even know. He's not going to be a 25-point per game scorer here.
I mean, he might. I mean, the shots are available.
Off the bench, though? I mean, most people assume he's going to be a bench player.
I mean, he could come off the bench and still play close to 30 minutes. I mean, 25 is maybe a little much, but, they don't have any real shot creation outside of Jaylen Brown. Derek White isn't going out getting his own shot. Peyton Pritchard, I guess, can, but I just think people need to understand the reality of the Celtics roster as it stands right now and the deficiencies that it has. I mean, they may not score 80 points if he doesn't take a lot of shots. That's just the truth. But to your question about being cheap, I do think people, when they're talking about the luxury tax, the benefit, and it's all things that we don't know, right? But let's say they get under, they have this $22 million Porzingis trade exemption, right? That in theory, you're thinking, okay, when it's time to rebuild around Tatum, that's a vehicle you can use to bring in a relatively high salary player, in theory, right? In theory. There's, for all we know, if they pay the tax this year in a non-Tatum season, so under the second apron, but above the luxury tax, for all we know, when it comes time to use that TPE, the mandate might say, hey, we had this amount of tax bill last year. You only can use 15 of that 22 million TPE. That, to me, would be a basketball ramification on a financial problem, right? So maybe the idea is move off outside pieces, the Niangs or whatever, see if you can get under to buy that 1 year so that when you're back over the tax next year, they're more comfortable with that bill. They're more comfortable giving, full clearance for the exemption. We just don't know because it's only July 12th. And we're just speculating because it's beyond moronic to not be a luxury tax team when Jason Tatum exists and is on the floor and you're contending. It's not a bad idea to do what you can in a reset year, but also making sure you are set up for when he's back. So I don't really want them offloading guys like Hauser or salary dumping Simons for things like that, because those are pieces you may need a year from now when you're going to be back over the tax.
And for me, it was never like a money thing. It's more like a roster building thing. And that's the thing that I think, the paying the luxury tax, all the millions, all that stuff, that's one thing. But the getting under the second apron, what that allows you to do from a roster building trade standpoint, that's the biggest thing. And even Felger admitted that that's, he like kind of put it like, he's like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. That checks out. That's a good reason to get under the second apron. I was like, yeah, that's the main reason. The main reason is because it just allows you to trade a lot easier for guys to improve your basketball team. When you're over that second apron, it's strict contract matching 1v1, and it gets really difficult with certain salaries of a certain range. It just makes way more sense to get under that, reset, and then come back with a better way to improve your roster in an easier way to improve your roster. Again, as we had Matt Moore on here like a month ago, Kaufman, in Denver it's funny because you mentioned Denver, like Denver would kill to do this, but then Denver went out and traded Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. And that made so much sense. They got Bruce Brown back and it's like, well, they would love to do that, but they just went out there and really,
Valanciunas too.
Really did a great job of rebuilding that roster
against his will, but nevertheless.
Well, yeah, but that being said, again, I think it's more of a roster building thing.
Yeah, I just think you have to treat them as two separate things, right? Because they're two separate paths. Well, they're like two separate avenues that you could check off. The first one has always been the second apron because of, like you said, the roster constrictions. The luxury tax part is like, if we can, great. But if it was this mandate, you would have seen the Derek White's move, maybe the Jaylen Brown. But like, there's still $20 million over the luxury tax. So I feel like a lot of that is potential fear mongering of like, look at, they're cutting off everybody. They're going to be under for 2 years. They're wasting Tatum.
Well, Greeny, I think the problem, and I don't know if problem's even the right word, but I think part of the issue here is, and you've alluded to this in a series of tweets as signings have been made across the NBA as well, is, some people just, want to say, they're being cheap, like just to get the reaction. I'm not even like pointing at radio hosts. I mean, people across social media, across different digital platforms, TV, whatever. Like there are just some people that want to do that and get the response. That's fine. But I think the larger component to this is that the Celtics are effectively the first team that's facing this, and so like it's easy to say, they're being cheap, because we haven't seen other teams forced to follow suit yet, which over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to see it from a lot of
everybody
that are going to be in the exact same situation. And so unfortunately, we don't have those, it's like the comps, we don't have the situations elsewhere that we can point to and say, see, they just had to go through it. They just had to go like, now it's our turn. No, it's like when the Celtics are first, that's where it gets a little fuzzy just in terms of the conversation around the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-year clock. The second you cross over the apron, you start your 2-year clock before you have to sell off pieces to get under it. That doesn't – people, I think it means if you have an expensive core that your core will be broken up, but it's not. It's you decide your core, whatever that price ends up being, great, and you shell off pieces around it. Like Cleveland this year is starting their 2-year clock. And after, 27, 28 or 26, 27, they're going to be offloading DeAndre Hunter, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, maybe if that doesn't pan out. Like, then you have Minnesota is coming down the pike. You're going to have OKC potentially have to offload Hartenstein and Dort after this season. Like, it's every team in the NBA that goes over the second apron has to do this. No team will spend 3 straight years. So really it's a question of when do you want that clock to start? You can offload pieces. Like for the Thunder are a great example of this. They can choose to pick up everybody. Let's say they win the title this year, go back to back.
Mhm.
They can say, okay, we're just going to say, screw it. We're going to start our clock. We're going to pick up the team options on Hart, on Dort, on everybody. Right now, they're $24 million over the second apron entering next season. Now that they gave out all their max extensions like the Celtics did after their title, they're going to still pay the luxury tax, but they're going to have to get rid of those rotation pieces to either get under the apron or to push out the starting clock. You know, maybe you want that to begin in SGA's first year of his extension. You can just go down the list, like Minnesota, Cleveland, New York will have to deal with this. Like, it's just inevitable until they change the CBA.
Exactly what I wanted to ask you about real quick. And I know we got a break in a moment too, but this CBA took effect in July 2023. It's a 7-year deal. It runs through the 29-30 season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's possible here, and we're projecting out a few years, obviously, but do you think it's possible in this window that the Celtics unfortunately find themselves in this window that, you know, it's X number of teams, half the league or whatever it is going to be impacted by this, and then come 2030, something dramatic is going to change with the CBA, and, you know, we'll look back at the teams like the Celtics that were impacted and go, crap, they got a raw deal, in the same way that we could look back to the previous CBA and say, you know, like, look what Golden State got away with, you know, being able to bring in Kevin Durant in a world that wouldn't be possible today.
I mean, I think that's entirely possible. I guess it just depends on what side you think is going to want to opt out, right? Because it's great for the owners. They don't have to pay things. They can offload salary. It's great for them. If you're a middling team that's never a free agent destination, but you have all these quality players now hitting the market, you know, because their teams can't afford them, maybe you like it. As a player, maybe you're a mid-level guy and you're getting squeezed out, so the players opt out. It would shock me if there isn't an opt-out and something has changed, but it also wouldn't shock me if we end up seeing a lockout because the owners just don't want to budge because for some reason CJ McCollum and Grant Williams accepted this current CBA. So what I think the easiest change would be is, like, if you have a homegrown Supermax player, the full 30 or 35% doesn't count towards your cap. Maybe they limit that at 20% just for roster building and apron, you know, possibilities. But I'm sure there's reasons why that can't happen. But I do think the first couple teams that go through this, you'll look back and be like, man, if only their change, if their team had been built post 2030, they maybe could have had 2 or 3 more swings instead of having to break up after 2 years.
We'll continue with Greeny after a quick break and a word from our sponsors, our partners over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks.
Hoffman, you want to know how big of a sicko I am?
Are you playing WNBA PrizePicks like I am?
No, I'm even a bigger sicko than this. I am doing PrizePicks flex play for the NBA Summer League. That's how I had so much fun with PrizePicks during the regular season and in the postseason. You and I were texting constantly about what I was trying to do, what my next lineup was going to be. I'm already back. I'm already back on the flex play, which again I talk about on this show all the time. But seriously, like, you can go 2 out of 3 and still 1x your money. Like, that's just good odds. It's just good business. It's being smart, right? If you hit all 3, it's 3x. That's great. But if you hit 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3, you're still walking away with money, which I tends to favor me more often than not. I tend to get 2 out of 3. I'm 3 out of 3 sometimes. Can be difficult. And with that in mind, with the NBA Summer League in mind, as a sicko, I have in my lineup for this Saturday, Cooper Flagg, more than 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined.
Okay.
I believe that he will shoot the ball better, which will make his ability to get that 29.5 a little bit easier. David Jones-Garcia. Now, folks, if you have not heard of this guy, it would not shock me in the slightest, but he has been kind of a revelation a little bit here for the early Summer League Spurs. I got him at more than 15.5 points. The guy can really fill up the stat sheet, at least in terms of scoring the basketball. And then my favorite, and he wasn't even drafted. This guy was an undrafted free agent. This was so predictable that he was going to be serviceable right from the jump. Ryan Nembhard, obviously of the Nembhard family. We all love his brother on the Pacers, but Ryan Nembhard was one of the best point guards in college. His first summer league game with the Mavericks. Once again, just a maestro with the basketball. I'm going more than 5.5 assists. So Flag, more than 29.5 points, rebounds, assists combined. Garcia, more than 15.5 points. Nembhard, more than 5.5 assists. Again, flex play, hit all three times your money. Hit 2 out of 3, 1x. And then getting your money coffin couldn't be any easier. Just deposit is easy. Withdrawal, even easier. All you got to do is fill out how much you want to take out. You can even Venmo yourself, basically. You've sent it right to Venmo. It's in your account 15 minutes. Nothing better than that, my friend.
Did you get that Nembhard jersey yet?
Buddy, it's on order.
He's going to after a big PrizePicks hit.
I love Ryan Nembhard. Yeah, you know what I might do? If I can bank enough money via Summer League PrizePicks, I will buy a Ryan Nembhard jersey. Facts.
Hang that sucker up on the wall. Listen, we're all going to be watching Andrew go all NBA second team this year, so, why not? Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after playing your first lineup for only $5. Again, download the PrizePicks app. Do it right now. Use the code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after playing your first $5 lineup. All right, maybe don't do it right now. Wait till the show's over and then go and do it. PrizePicks. Run your game. Let's get back to Greeny. All right, guys, I'm sure there are plenty of people, because it's not just here that you get that kind of conversation. People that over the last couple of weeks are a little tired of hearing about second apron penalties and money and what's ownership going to do and is Simon's going to be traded and all that stuff. Let's take Brad at his word, because honestly, I think all three of us would agree. Brad Stevens, unlike Danny Ainge, this is not a criticism of Danny. Danny always said, lying's the job, right? Misleading's the job. Brad is kind of an anomaly in that he's, you listen to him. He's generally pretty honest with you. You can usually take what Brad Stevens says about this team, about this roster publicly, and at least, to a reasonable degree, it's on point. He's not trying to misdirect you. So let's take him at his word that this roster, as it exists right now, is going to be awfully damn similar to the one, if not exact, that opens up the season. Well, that means, how do these Summer League guys obviously fit in, and what are their roles going to be? So mentioned earlier, we saw a 92-78 Summer League opening win for the Celtics against the Grizzlies. The draft picks, Hugo Gonzalez, a dozen points, 5 assists. He had a couple of blocks. Shot 4 of 12, 4 rebounds, 28 minutes, plus 11, and absolutely stole Greeny's heart. Shireman participated in this. Of course, the second-year Celtic. He had 8 points. Jordan Walsh was out there, had 17, the leading scorer for Boston. Amari Williams, who, honestly, of these rookies, I'm most excited about, maybe because of the position of need, but also I enjoyed watching him in college, and we saw flashes of it again in his Summer League debut. I want to see what this looks like against real NBA players, but he had 9 points, a few rebounds, didn't miss a shot in his 22 minutes. And of course, off the bench, Kenneth Lofton, Kenny's kid, who was, shot miserably, 1 of 8, but was 9 of 10 at the free throw line, had 11 points and 9 rebounds, got some people excited out there. And Charles Bassey, I have to bring up as well, who walked in off the street and had a double-double in his 18 minutes, 14 points and 11 rebounds. I hesitate to call him a journeyman. He's only played with a couple of teams, but he's been with the league for 4 years and could find himself a home in Boston potentially. But I guess let's start with the first rounder here, Greeny. What got you all excited about Hugo?
Okay, where do we? All right, I got to make sure I'm situated here. Okay, first and foremost was probably his poise, with the way that he was able to manipulate in the pick and roll. His pace, the patience that he showed was really impressive. You just get a sense that these teenagers without these first taste of NBA experience, they don't look like things feel sped up to them. Like I remember Jordan Walsh, he was just kind of running around out there. Same thing with like Peyton Pritchard early. There's just a cadence to which they play that you're like, all right, this is your first taste of professional basketball. With him, he was already manipulating and moving like a maestro. And right away, you're like, he got pickpocketed real early, bringing the ball up in half court. Ever since that moment, it just felt like he was way more polished and under control, which for me is a big, big thing because that shows confidence. It shows the ability to, not feel overwhelmed. It wasn't like things were too fast for him as the game sped up. So that was great. He didn't turn it over on one entry pass, which I don't think we've seen the Celtic have that good of a run of entry passes in the Joe Mazzulla era. No one on this team can throw an entry pass. He's picking up 94 feet. He's fighting over screens. He's diving for loose ball. All the hyperbole that we heard on draft night was immediately validated the first 6 minutes of his game. On the flip side, he can't make free throws. He missed 4 straight in warmups, which hurt my heart. I think he was 1 for 5 from the line in this game, which was not great, but that could have just been nerves. I just think overall his catch and shoot threes looked good. His size is much bigger than I thought. His body's more filled out, which makes me feel like he's a little bit more NBA ready body wise than, other 19-year-olds may be. I don't even care about the 4 of 12 because some of his shots that he missed were generated through good process. He had a couple grenade threes that you don't really love, like end of shot clock, low percentage. But he's turning the corner on pick and roll, getting into a float game, which intrigues me. It was about as good of a debut as I think any one of us could have expected from a 19-year-old kid from Spain.
I got his nickname already. I'm going to call him the Navigator because he's incredibly good at navigating over screens. I texted you, Kaufman, last night, and it was in the middle of, I forget which fight. It wasn't Serrano Taylor yet. But I just happened to be queuing up just highlights. So I was like, oh, well, I'm killing time. I'll watch Hugo again. And I threw it on. And the one thing that just jumps out right away, it's this guy's a maniac going over screens. Yeah. I mean, he is.
He really is.
About, the beauty of Derek White, the beauty of Alex Caruso. You cannot screen Alex Caruso. It is impossible. Mm-hmm. The guy is an otherworldly screen navigator. And I'm seeing that right away from Hugo from the jump. And the other stuff is fun too. I'm not saying that I love the fact that he gets by guys. And yeah, he had a little bit of the yips yesterday. I think at the free throw line, totally agree. I think the game was a little too fast for him. I think he was, at times sped up a little bit. But at the same time, the chaotic energy that everybody talks about, that's so clear right from the get-go. And then just you watch him, he's impossible to screen because he's moving consistently. At a certain point, Green, I don't know if you saw it, but it felt like to me as the guy watching the game, I was like, is Hugo trying to guard everybody on this possession? Because I just feel like he's
to be honest, I thought he dislocated his shoulder. There was the screen, I think it was in the third or fourth quarter. He went over the screen, got the illegal screen call, but it kind of decked him. I thought he popped his shoulder. I was like, because you're right. He's just I'd say Derek White is probably the best screen navigator they have, but they also just lost a great screen navigator in Jrue Holiday. So to have that skill set back at his size, 6'4", 6'5", is something the roster needs because it's even if he knows that he's not going to be involved in the play, he still tries it and still tries to fight over it. And that's the type of mentality you're thinking of. The result does not impact his decision-making one bit when it comes to his energy and his effort. And that's how I feel like he's going to find his way on the floor because, he's not going to be taking 12, 15 shots in whatever minutes he gets, but he can make an open three. His form looks better. His rotation on the ball looks good. It's just, can you earn minutes through defense? It feels like he can. Can you operate in the pick and roll? Feels like he did yesterday. A pretty good job. He had this one-handed bounce pass to a rolling Kenny Lofton, who I think turned it over. But the pass itself, it was it was like Steve Nash with his left hand coming out for screen, just spinning it. So it's like I said, it was by far exceeding expectations for what I had coming in.
One of the huge questions, and look, I know there's a lot of excitement around Hugo, and for all the reasons that you guys have discussed, justifiably so, especially in terms of just that frenetic energy that he brings this team. But I couldn't be more curious about what the front court is going to look like, what that dynamic is entering the season, because again, there's no Cornet, and I didn't think he was going to be back. There's no Horford, who, as time went on, I believed there was a chance, and his options, dried up elsewhere. But then obviously Brad says what he says, and that other person who texted me said what he said, and now I'm believing that is not happening. So, which, by the way, I mean, we've been saying for weeks on this show, Ev, that we thought that both those guys were going to be gone. So fine, all right, let's operate in the here and now, which is again in no particular order, Keita and Niang, and again, whoever from this summer league group were to make the team. Amari Williams, could he be there? Could Bassie be there? Am I missing anybody off the top of my head here?
Garza, Luca.
Garza. Yeah, thank you, Garza. Yeah, absolutely. So this group, I mean, look, in a perfect world, none of these guys that I just mentioned are starting for you. There's a possibility that one or two are going to start for you, at least in certain games, certain matchups. Bassie comes in. Garza and Niang, obviously notwithstanding. I'm just sort of more thinking about yesterday. Bassie comes in with decent experience, not a great player. He's played in 113 games, averaged 4 points. I'm looking at his stats, 4 rebounds, but limited 11 minutes a game, in San Antonio and Philadelphia, obviously. I don't even know that he makes this team. But he looked great yesterday against boys, man among boys. What to you, Greeny, is realistic opening night in terms of which bigs are not only on the roster, but potentially, starting and or getting a considerable rotation role?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. The Celtics have the worst big rotation in the entire NBA at the moment. Like, slow-footed, can't switch, can't guard in space. Like, again, it's just the realities that we as fans have to accept when you lose Horford, Cornet, and Porzingis. Like, the drop-off to Keita, Garza, Tillman, and rookies in Summer League guys is catastrophic. I will say Amari Williams is gigantic. Like, that was my first takeaway. He's got huge size. He's the legit 7 feet. The wingspan, I think Zarin talked about the wingspan after they took him. It's unbelievable. Like, it's legitimately, 7'9" or 7'6", something crazy like that. And the way he moves and the way he can kind of pass and move the rock and sort of, push the ball up the court, I would want him in the rotation off one Summer League game and how bad your roster is at that position. He was really surprising. I think realistically, you're probably going to see Keita start just from the familiarity of the team and the system. But, I mean, what are you going to – there's no big man savior that's going to come change the outlook of this group. This is what it is for this season. Unless a higher salary player can be flipped for smaller pieces that also include a good center, I think you're going to see – the Keita, Garza, Tillman, Niang quartet, filter in there. And then when Amari's up for Maine, he may get some money, or some minutes. But I just think this is what it is.
Ev, I was wondering, like, in my head, like, why was Luka Garza so forgettable? And I just pulled up his stats, and I know he's a bigger name, I guess, than someone like Charles Bassie, but statistically,
he didn't play.
He's arguably worse. At least the numbers. I mean, he's same points, fewer rebounds, fewer minutes, basically the same number of games played. Also 4 years, also 2 stops between Detroit and Minnesota. I think some people have been a little excited about Luka Garza. I guess, I don't know, upside, but man, I'm not sure that this guy is. I know they've signed him, but
you got to think of him as like
a roster spot.
Well, you got to think of him as like he's the Luke Cornet when Luke Cornet first got to Boston. Like, we have this vision of Luke Cornet from the last 2 years, but remember they cut Luke Cornet in 2021. You know what I mean? Like, he's an unbelievable, well, not unbelievable. He's a really good offensive rebounder, So the idea is that he could grow into that same type of rim rolling, offensive rebounding big that Kornet did. He does try to shoot the three a little bit more and never makes them, but he takes them, but he doesn't make them.
Yeah.
I just think like
30%.
Their big man rotation is like a Frankenstein of skill sets that they had in like one player in Al Horford. You get one guy that's like an okay offensive rebounder. You get Amari Williams, who's like a good passer. You've got, Tillman, who's a big body. You've got, Bassie, who might be a good defensive rebounder. But they don't have like one big man that does all of those things. And they just had three of them that did, a handful of those things. That's the difference.
Yeah, the bet on Garza is the fact that he played on two teams that had a lot of big man depth. And maybe there's something there that you can scratch the surface with. Is it a worthwhile dart throw? I guess, but, I don't have high hopes there. Again, they're not a great defensive player, but, can fill it up offensively. Maybe that's going to be the move. Maybe they're going to try and score 140 points a game and then try and blow people out that way. But, I mean, look.
Hope Simons is really good.
The big man rotation is going to be really, really tough. I mean, you're just going to have to grit through it. I mean, look, we've gone through worse, right? I mean,
I don't
Jared
know.
Sullinger got serious minutes for the Celtics back in the day. So, I mean,
First round pick.
Yeah. Right. So the expectation, I think I've gone through similar stuff. In going into the season, I'm not expecting any of these guys to really do anything of note. I mean, maybe Cato with a little bit more playing time can maybe be, you talk about Luke Kornet wearing 7 because he wants to be a third of what Tim Duncan was. Can Cato be like half of what Luke Kornet was? Can we sign up for that? Like, I don't know. I just, it's the one thing we'll be very clear is we're gonna miss those like even the people, because a lot of people have trashed Kristaps Porzingis on his way out the door for not being available in the playoffs, but like he was awesome when he played. And like this next season you're gonna be
dependable.
Which KP was here, because this is brutal to watch.
Did you guys realize that Garza and Bassie were picked back to back in the 01 draft too, or
No.
21 draft?
I remember, what was that? The 21 draft?
Yeah,
right?
21 draft. I just pulled it up. Garza was picked 52, and then Bassie went 53.
I remember thinking the Celtics should have taken him at like 45. Didn't they have like 45 or 46?
That I don't remember.
That draft. I think they
I
did.
was looking at their two profiles.
Yeah, but the thing you're going to notice right away is any big, Amari is still TBD because we haven't really seen him, but the players that we have seen, and then the Garzas of the world that they brought in, tremendous slow feet, like cannot move in space, are not quick, do not have lateral quickness. So the very things that the Celtics thrived in, switching, being able to guard multiple positions, you are not getting that in the 25-26 Boston Celtics front court. Like, Xavier Tillman is not guarding anybody in space. He's just not going to. So I think when people think, oh, this team should still be able to contend, mid-40s wins, I don't think you're understanding the drop-off that you are now having on both ends of the floor from your big man rotation, as well as understanding you've lost 5 of your top 8 rotation from last year with Tatum being out. So it's like we want this perception of last year because Jaylen and White and Pritchard and Hauser are still around. But you have to also remember they were on a team that relied exclusively on Jason Tatum to set everything up for them and to have that gravity. And then on the back line, if there was a defensive breakdown, they had elite rim protection. None of that exists for this upcoming season. So I think the sooner that you come to terms with that and just understand to just, YOLO and go off the vibes and pretend like it's 2013, I think is the better path of expectations.
Well, you had tweeted not long ago that you just, kind of acknowledged it, but you tweeted like a 3-year sample size. It was Brad Stevens' first 3 years in the league, the 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16 seasons. And obviously there was incremental improvement through each one as rosters got better. I mean, like for Basketball Reference win share, each of those 3 years, we're talking about like that first year, Brandon Bass, second year, Tyler Zeller, and then of course, Isaiah Thomas. But 2 of those 3 teams did go to the playoffs. And as we know, this is a very, weak Eastern Conference. So Brad's first year and what a disaster that roster was. Remember the Chris Humphreys and Gerald Wallace's and all those guys of Keith Bogan's, who did he even ever wear the uniform? I don't remember. 25 and 57. Then the following year, basically 500 or 40 and 42, and then you're 48 and 34. And you had asked, social media, and I don't know what the response was overwhelmingly, but you basically said, which of these 3 years is a reasonable expectation for this upcoming year? And I think you had said, my like heart says the 48 win team, my head says the 25 win team.
Yeah, and what's important to remember about that 40 and 42 team is that was the 20 and 11 run post Isaiah trade is included in that. So they were 20 and 31 ahead of that trade and then got through the deadline and then made their run. So really the question is, are they going to be the post Isaiah sort of rebuild years where they were competitive, winning 40 something games, or the pre Isaiah rebuild, which is kind of what it feels like, where they were like 44 and 68 for that year and a half before he got there. And I think those are the good parameters of like, top 4 seed contention, play-in seed, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9 seed, whatever, playing right around 500, or the third one being we're tanking for AJ DeBanza. Like that's
what I would say to that is that if you were if you were in the West, obviously this looks much different. But you play in the Eastern Conference, which is so watered down right now. And you've got that talent that you mentioned, Brown and White. Simons obviously is a scorer, Pritchard, and lump in whoever you want from there. But you've got your core, if they're healthy, which is always the big if, always the caveat for every team. But I mean, if you have a healthy group that plays a reasonable number of games, I still think this is a 45 win team.
You're doing it. See, you're doing what I just said.
But I'm not talking myself into it. I think that's a reasonable expectation. They're not going to win 50. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs. But they're not. This isn't a 25 win team unless Jaylen Brown gets hurt in the first 2 weeks of the season. We don't see him again.
I think you're looking at arguably a bottom third defense collectively, and that's being generous. And you just have to think of the things. You need to pretty much have an even net rating to be around 42 to 43 wins, right? So if you're going to have a defensive rating that's in the bottom third, you're looking at, like a 117, 119 defensive rating. That is going to have to mean that your offense will play at the same level that we just watched with all the pieces from last season. It's just not possible. You don't have your best player. You don't have the shooting. You don't have the size. You don't have the switchability. So, yes, there's that familiarity of your core. But when you think of what goes into making a 45-win team, their defense is not going to be good enough to sustain what you're now missing also from an offensive standpoint. It's just there's too much of an imbalance. So I think it's more realistic to where they're going to be like high 30s, low 40s in the play-in, maybe lose the play-in game and have what happened with the Mavs, where you get some Adam Silver finagling and you get up in the lottery that way. The way they're constructed, they're just not going to get the stops, and they're so overly reliant on Tatum's offensive creation that I just can't see them having the metrics and the data to support 45 wins. That's just too high. Barring something, if Amari comes in and he's Rob Williams and Hugo is, an unbelievable, sure. But in reality, I think you're looking at high 30s, low 40s in a good scenario.
So according to DraftKings, Celtics over under at the moment is 43.5, and it's minus 120 for the over. I would take the under on that and take the plus odds. It's plus 100, so it's even right now. But it's just one of those things where, I mean, we're gonna see Jaylen as number one option for the first time ever. It's gonna be really interesting. Derek White, obviously we love the way he just kind of fits into any situation. Can he take a step up? But I mean, they're gonna get killed on the glass. They're not gonna be able to control pace of games unless they're making a bunch of shots. So again, as Greeny said, their offense would have to perform at a level that replicates their level the past 2 seasons when they've had historically good offenses without 2 of the biggest weapons they had on the team. Then you can argue 2 years ago, corner 3-point shot Drew Holiday was one of the best,
Right.
the best little wrinkles of an offense you could possibly have. The guy shot 60% from the corner. So you got to, as we all go back to the Moneyball quote that Brad Pitt spits out of like, we got to make him up in the aggregate. You're not going to be able to make this up in the aggregate. There's just no way you don't have talent. So like it does help, but they play in a pretty piss poor conference. And then the teams that are good, like there's some health issues there. Indiana not having Halliburton's going to be really interesting. I mean, obviously they have a lot of talent still, but they lost Miles Turner. They not having Hallie is going to be wild. Although again, we all know Andrew Nembhard is going to be probably Michael Jordan for a season, so we'll see how that goes. But it's just you go through the pecking order, and I was doing it kind of the opposite way. Like who do we know they're better than? Like they're better than the Hornets. They're going to be better than the Wizards. They're going to be better than a few of these teams at the bottom, like the Raptors. Like the Raptors are, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
But see, I feel like we're about to have a Toronto Raptors-like season. 36, 37, 38 wins.
Yeah, but Jalen's better than anybody on the Raptors, though. Like, he's just way better than any player on the Raptors. Like, the Raptors tried to trade for Derek White, and they got laughed out of the building because it's like, no, that's just not going to cut it. Because
but when you think of their deficiencies, poor defense, no real rim protection, can't shoot, now look at how the Celtics stack up, right? You mentioned Jaylen is your now number 1 option, which is a question mark. But it's a number 1 option without all the pieces that we just saw. What is the spacing going to look like if it's Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman on the floor? Who's respecting their 3-point shot? So it's like,
yeah, it's a game-high 17 points.
I know, but on an NBA level, they're going to make him prove that you can beat them consistently. So it's like, yes, they have all these core players, but you have to think about how they're going to be guarded. They can't play the same 5-out style because they don't have the spacing and the shooting. There's no more Al Horford pick and pop safety valve 3. There's no more Porzingis attacking a switch, and abusing someone in the paint. Now that player is Neemias Queta. Like, that is such a huge drop off. I just think that they're going to still be, 45 wins would probably have them a 5 seed, maybe even a 4 seed. I just think that's way too high based on the math of how they're going to have to play. It's just going to be a down year, unfortunately.
I just want to pull up at least since I wasn't really thinking about it, but Ev brought up, Vegas odds in terms of the win total for Boston. What about the, who in the Eastern Conference is projected, just if we're looking at odds, to finish ahead of the Celtics? In order, this is on FanDuel. Cleveland and New York are basically co-favorites to win the East. Fine. I don't think anyone would argue against that right now. Orlando, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, then you have Boston. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That has Boston in the play-in tournament. Ahead of Milwaukee, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bucks, we'll see what that looks like. I actually am a believer in the Bucks this year compared to like the dregs of the Eastern Conference. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship, but I'd put Milwaukee considerably higher on this list than they currently exist. I think there's value in that 17-1, which if anybody wants to invest in that to win the Eastern Conference. But putting that aside, man, I am like, Philadelphia is such a question mark in terms of health, always, year after year. Obviously, they belong where they are, if not higher, if they're healthy, which is such an if. Atlanta, we don't know how that's going to look. We only know what they've been trying to do. Orlando, same deal, 5-1. I don't know about Detroit. I think I'd be comfortable putting Boston ahead of Detroit. I know Detroit had a hot finish last year.
As constructed, why? That's it. They have a front court. They're adding spacing.
Top heavy.
Maybe they're bench, but like if Ron Holland makes a jump, again, I feel like if you want to have the optimistic outlook on the Celtics, you have to use that same framework for all the teams around them.
I agree.
And given their talent level and their cohesive, like their team that's ascending, it wouldn't surprise me if the Celtics are the 8th seed in the play-in and they're the 7th seed in the play-in or 6th seed. I don't think that should surprise you.
So do you, the Celtics are a 500 team at their ceiling?
I think, yeah, like 43 wins would be exceeding their ceiling to me. And that's not even factoring in any, if Jaylen Brown pulls a hamstring, you're having a Philadelphia 76ers season winning 24 games. I think if you get average normal health where he's missing, a handful of games here and there, just, nothing drastic, just your normal run of the mill season. I think based on their collection of talent, you're probably capped at like 42, 43. You really are.
What are you rooting for? I mean, you watch every game, you watch every minute of every game, as many fans do, and you want to be entertained, and you obviously are rooting for success, and you're rooting for the best case scenario. But if we're big picturing the thing, would you be devastated by a 25-win season?
I mean, that is what sets them up maybe for the most flexibility moving forward, whether they keep or move the pick. I tend to believe all competitive reps matter. So I would not hate making the play-in, having your young guys, get that play-in experience, even if you lose it and now your pick is 10, 11, whatever. Adam Silver will rig the lottery for you like he did for the Mavs. I'm not worried about that. So I would have no problem of a season where they play hard, they're competitive, they're in these games, they just don't have the talent to win. Like if you had a Brooklyn Nets season that they just had, right? Mm-hmm. They were a bitch to play. They fought hard. They were competitive. It was entertaining basketball. They just didn't have the talent to beat the Celtics or, get over the hump and get in the win column. I think that is where you can be, sort of fine as a fan, as long as you're seeing the development from the pieces that you need to develop. I do not think wins and losses really even matter. It's weird to say coming off like title or bust seasons, but that's what a reset year is. It's like, try your hardest, do your best, and wherever you fall is wherever you fall.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. It's going to be more of a development year. You're going to have to – it's going to be about the Jordan Walshes, the Baylor Shiremans, the Payton Pritchards, maybe even Anthony Simons. Like, we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be a development year and trying to figure out, who's going to be able to stick on this team long term, who's the part of the next – I thought it was very interesting that Stevens put Pritchard in the core group of this team. I thought that was between Jason, Jaylen, Derek White, and he mentioned Payton Pritchard. That was very telling. But like, who can they add to that core group? Is there another guy that can make a leap that can make an impact on this team? Because the minutes are going to be there for a guy like Jordan Walsh, Shireman, etc.
You basically need at least two of that foursome of like Walsh, Hugo, Amari, and Baylor. You need two of those people to prove to be rotational players for when Tatum is back. You can't go 0 for 4. 1 for 3 or 1 for 4 would still kind of put you in a little bit of a pinch. Ideally, it's Amari and a wing. Whoever that wing is going to be, I think, put you in an okay spot from a positional need standpoint of, okay, we have these low-cost controlled players who are serviceable at these key positions that work once Tatum is back in the mix.
We have gone long enough on this show, so we won't have the conversation now. Plus, we have plenty of shows ahead of us before the season gets here. But you guys both brought it up, and it's a conversation that I'm very much looking forward to having. I think it's fascinating. Jaylen Brown, number one option. Game to game, no doubt about it. No shadows of Jason Tatum on any given day. It is your squad, your team. Are you this, 30-point per game guy on a mediocre to maybe even bad team? Like so many people have said over the course of your career, Jaylen, are you grabbing that baton and running with it? That's going to be something that I'm really fascinated to see, or whether they are even looking for him to be that guy versus a more balanced offense between Brown, White, Simons if he's here, and so on. Pritchard, obviously. I mean, Payton Pritchard could be a guy that averages 18 to 20 points for this team, obviously. Again, Greeny mentioned it. Scoring's got to come from somewhere. So it's going to be a fun conversation to have in the weeks and months to come, obviously. But I think between reacting to more Summer League on the way and whatever transactions happen during the month of August, because the Celtics are certainly famous for that, we'll have some, plenty to get into. Obviously, if you are new to the CLNS Media page or CLNS Media Network in general, there are a bevy of Celtics podcasts that you could check out. You can find ours by going to the CLNS All Access page on YouTube. We get clipped up there, full shows, all of it, the podcast, wherever you subscribe to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, you name it. But get Greeny from Barstool Sports on Twitter at Stool Greeny, tweeting through his feelings on a daily basis.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Well, yeah. And look, again, it's a bear, but I got the notifications on. I like to see it. I like to know what Greeny is thinking when those emotions are hitting hard. But Greeny, thank you for hopping on.
Of course.
Ev, always a pleasure. We will obviously do it again next week. And yeah, guys, hey, in one form or another, basketball is back. For Ev, for Dan, I am Adam. We'll talk to you next time on Celtics Beat.